Hey, it's Josh, aka Spieglass. I'm going to use this video to demonstrate using panning as a technique for creating space and depth to songs, adding a different type of movement to give it some more interesting effects. So I'm going to use two songs to demonstrate this. First one will be Suddenly Something, Suddenly There's Something, which I'll link below. And it particularly applies to panning delay repeats. So if I bring up this kick track, I'm going to click these notes here, and just as a disclaimer, obviously with talking about panning and stereo effects, you're going to want speakers on either side of you, or of course the more preferred option, headphones, so you can really hear what's going on. So here are the sounds to pay attention to in the drum track here. So let's go ahead and solo that out, and you'll hear how it sounds on its own. Pretty sterile, not much going on, there's just some reverb. So of course I thought, well, I definitely want to add delay, and I've gone over this song in another video. But essentially it's a two note slapback delay here. But the key is, you can see this first repeat, this is your panning, this is your center line, it's all the way left. Of course you can do this whole spectrum here. So I have one repeat all the way left and the other one all the way right. And when we add that in, it'll take on a whole different character. So I'll do it dry and then add the delay in, and you'll hear what's happening. So very much more interesting there. Of course, delay is a big part of this. So why don't we move on to something that isn't worried about delay, and I'll show you another type of panning technique. Well, two really. So first things first, let's just listen to this piano ostinato, and what it is Native Instruments una corda. You can see there's a little bit, two beats of a ping pong delay, and then in the reverse, so it's real subtle. I don't have it high in the mix. I just have some onboard reverb here with Glaceverb. So let's just hear what that sounds like to start. So pretty good trails on that, but because it's in a higher register and una corda, as the name implies, it's only one chord per key on the piano. So in that higher register, you can hear it sounds a little shallow, a little sterile in terms of it's not very full-bodied, well-rounded. It's all just kind of stuck in that treble range. So one thing I wanted to do to spice it up is I use this library from Spitfire Audio. It's the Oliver Patrice Vader library, and I use this tempo sync option he has. There's a few tempo synced things that he made with synths and stuff, and right now I have it on its own. You can see it's the only thing on the track. So here's what it sounds like as is, with just a little bit of onboard reverb. So some pulse action going on, sort of like a tremolo effect, sort of just like maybe a couple choppy delays after it. Not 100% sure what he's doing on that one. So if I put those together, it'll fill out the sound a little more. There's a little more action happening. So that's all well and good. However, I wanted to make this a little more interesting, so I threw some panning on it. So I don't know what options you have in your DAW, but if you have Reaper, like I have here, here's what I'd like to do. Let's go to Add, and then in the JS section, you're just going to filter it out to a pan. And we're just going to use the volume pan smoother. So what I'm about to show you, you can actually do with volume here and create a tremolo effect. So I'm not going to do it, but just know that everything I'm about to click, you can just apply to volume instead. So what we're looking at obviously is the pan option. It's on the center line. You can go all the way left, all the way right, right? So let's hit parameter, FX parameter list, and then we want to modulate it. So go to parameter modulation, and then of course select pan. It's going to bring this up, which doesn't look like anything. Well, it's because we need to activate the LFO. So activate it, and now you can see motion. So there's a few things that I'm going to do. I'm going to ignore the shape because I think sine wave is fine. But as you can see, it's going from the center point all the way right. Well, that's because we have it positive. If we wanted the opposite, we'd hit negative. So now it's center all the way left. But what I want to do is center it. And so now it's using the line of no panning as a center point, and it's going all the way left and all the way right. The reason it's doing that is because of the strength. So if I bring the strength down, you can see now it's a lot more subtle. It's only hitting, what, like 26, 25 in there? Jack it back up, it goes to 100. So I want to keep it pretty close to 100 because I want this panning effect to be noticeable. It's going to be hidden a little bit behind the sharp attack of the piano. So I'm going to keep the panning pretty strong there. But I maybe want to slow down the speed. It seems like it's going a little too fast because the faster you have it, the more obvious it's going to be. And I want this to be nice and subtle to create depth and movement without it being like the focal point. So all you got to do is just turn the speed down. And there you go. So now I'm going to hit play. And even though the una corda is going to be more upfront and present, try and focus on it. And why don't I go ahead and play it solo first so you can see what's happening, and then we'll play them together and you'll see how they interact. So I really like how that's moving. I could, for example, go really fast and it'll sound kind of goofy, but just for an example, I turn the speed way up here. So you could hear it starts to get that like glitchy, warbly effect because it was going too fast. If you go too slow, it might not be noticeable enough. So it's really about playing with it, finding it where you want. So let's go ahead and put them together and see what they sound like, and see if you can pick out that panning action happening. So obviously the idea there is it makes you feel a little more surrounded, because instead of just having something in both your ears at all times, everything's centered, you're getting this push action across your senses there, which is exactly why panning exists. You could do a hard pan, like if you just want one instrument, maybe in the background. That's a technique people have used forever, but this is how I like to use panning to create new effects. One other thing I'll show you is just a different way of doing it. So if we turn that off, so there's no panning there. Another thing you can of course do is manually draw it in. So if I open up the envelopes, let's open up the pan. This will help you be more precise and smooth if you want it. So you can automate this if you have faders or something, but if I were to create points, of course I could just do this, and then I could pan 77% there, try and hit near there here, 77, come down there, create a new point, 77, or I could just bring this all the way down, but we'll get a similar effect here. And of course I can make that a lot tighter if I wanted. So if I went like this over here, bring this way down here. Now let's see how it sounds. So that sounded a little more like what I had automated. Automating obviously just prevents me from having to mess with that. So you of course can just click that in. So those are two, well really three different ways that I use modulation of panning to give you some sense of depth, extra motion, a little more interest into some simple stuff. That first example again was on delays, which is really cool to ping pong your delays. You could manually create what you want here, like if I want it a little bit there and then I want it to be centered for a while, and then maybe copy this down here so you don't always have it modulating. That's an option. Or you can just of course have it automated like this and just put it behind other instruments. So like I said, I'll link that first song, Suddenly There's Something, below. I'll actually even link the video below where I talk about track layering, because in case you couldn't tell, these are the same tracks. I duplicated them, changed the instrument, and then added panning. So all very simple techniques, things you should be able to do in every single DAW, and I'll leave it there. Thanks.